Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of this F1 25 Joshua Pearce career mode. This is part 42 of the series. If you did miss the last episode, it was Oscar Piastri who won the Azerbaijan Grand Prix and now makes it 3 wins in a row for his championship charge. Lando Norris would take home a podium for McLaren, and Charles Leclerc would also quietly go along and get himself another podium for this season with Ferrari. But for myself, it was a pretty good recovery drive, but along our way to the finish line, we had a controversial collision. Actually, we made multiple collisions with Kimi Antonelli, and with one of them ending the Italian's day in the city of Baku when he crashed into the inside wall at turn 3 as we tried to give him a bit of a squeeze to defend our position. But in the end, we would drive home for a P6 position. And it was a pretty good race. It was a recovery drive, but we should not be doing the recovery drives because we've got the car to be at the front. And as we head into the next round, Oscar Piastri extends his championship lead to 22 points in the Drivers' Championship ahead of Lando Norris. And Sonny Hayes is in third, 20 points further behind Lando. Myself in 6, 18 points behind Charles Leclerc. And Apex GP, they lead the Constructors' Championship by 60 points to McLaren. And then Ferrari are in third, 49 further behind us. And jumping straight to the durability department, we've got a major reliability test that we can complete for the turbo, and if this does come through, it should jump our durability above the Ferrari, which would be absolutely huge with a 30% failure rate. I'm just going to do a stand development for this one because it's going to arrive between next round and Brazil, and it's going to be the same even if I do rush it, so really no point in doing so. And for the weather, this sprint weekend is looking interesting because hopefully it's not going to be actually too bad, but it is going to be considered mixed conditions, and it's only the end of the sprint race where the weather is expected to come in a big proportion as well. Look at that, heavy rain followed by a little bit lighter rain, but this could be a track that gets wet very quickly if we're not too careful. And speaking of big proportions, take a look at the performance jump for Apex GP. For a team that is already topping the performance charts, to still have a jump like that is insane work. Behind them, it's still all to play for, with Red Bull Ford now back ahead of us, and Ferrari still very much with us as well. Mercedes continues to get closer to our little battle, and there's been some movers in the mid-pack. Most notably now, it's Alpine ahead of Aston Martin Honda, and then Audi Sport and Racing Bull Fords have also closed the gap a little bit more to the mid-pack, but now we jump straight to sprint qualifying.
It's a United States love affair with Formula One at the moment, so what a thrill for everyone today to see our drivers lapping COTA at full hot lap speed. It's the Circuit of the Americas, and it's qualifying.
It's a slightly overcast day in Austin, Texas, and that is only going to improve the track conditions for hot laps here in qualifying. But because it is a sprint qualifying session, we're on the mediums for sprint qualifying 1 and 2, and you can see they're going off with a pretty good start, and that will be our only lap. And we crossed the line in third, but by the time the checkered flag drops, it's Piastri fastest ahead of his teammate Sonny Hayes, and Sainz in third, a 10th behind, and once again putting his Williams up towards the front. Myself ended up falling down to 5th, 3/10, and then Lando Norris is in 11th, 3/10 further behind me, and knocked down SQ1 was Isaac Hadjar. Alex Albon will be disappointed with that one actually being eliminated, especially considering his teammate is up in third. Other drivers to not make it through are both the Haas Toyotas and also both the Audi Sports, and you can see here using another set of mediums for the second part of qualifying not going well because it's going to be quite a scruffy first lap. We kind of turned in a little bit too early for turn 1 and had to recheck ourselves, and then coming down here to start the back straight, we were wide, and then had a big snap of oversteer and had to really catch it, and that was a real weird one of oversteer as well. It was really much in slow motion. We crossed the line in 11th, so obviously not going to cut it if we want to make it to SQ3, and so we have to go around for another lap. In SQ1 there was not much of an improvement, but this time there's a massive improvement just to show how bad that first lap was. And Hamilton will be fastest by 2/10 to Sonny Hayes, and Piastri in third, half a second behind. Myself ended up falling down to 4th, a 10th further behind, and Lando Norris in 6th, but knocked out of SQ2. And after getting a top 3 in the last session, it's Carlos Sainz out by 2/10, and it's Kimi Antonelli, Paul Aaron, Franco Colapinto, Lance Stroll, and Liam Lawson who can't make it to this final part of qualifying, and we're only going to get the one lap because we've only got the one set of softs, and we start the lap by trying to go a little bit too deep on the brakes on the uphill braking zone to turn 1. We lock it up, run very wide, and so now we have to try and regain ourselves for the rest of the lap and end up crossing the line in a pretty alright 8th position, but it's Piastri on sprint pole position with his teammate Sonny Hayes behind him by 3/10 to make an Apex GP front row lockout. Verstappen's in third, a further 4/10 behind with my teammate Lando Norris alongside Hamilton, who was fast as an SQ2, is in 5th with his old teammate George Russell alongside of myself in 8th at the end of that. After that giant lockup, 1.5 seconds off the pace and sharing the road with Charles Leclerc as we head into the sprint.
Forget pit stops, forget fuel management. It's pedal to the metal all the way here as we get ready for today's sprint. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. Oscar Piastri lines up on pole position, and Sonny Hayes completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Norris, and Sir Lewis Hamilton, and Russell, Leclerc, Pearce, Fernando Alonso, and Pierre Gasly, Sainz, Antonelli, Paul Aaron, and Colapinto, Stroll, Lawson, Isaac Hadjar, and Alex Albon, Behrman, Doohan, Bortoletto, and Nico Hulkenberg rounds off the grid. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out.
Okay, give me a quick radio check, please. Radio check. Okay, here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
So it's going to be the medium compound tyres for today's sprint race, and looking to try and improve our position to about the top 5, because in qualifying that was whereabouts we were, and we just kind of want to get myself back there, starting in 8th, so it's not a massive task, but there's only 10 laps to get it done with the risk of weather towards the end. So let's see what this holds for us. As it's lights out and we're off for the sprint race here in Austin, and it's a alright start, much better than George Russell. I didn't think it was too good, but better than George as we get it all crossed up on the exit curb there. We're trying to sneak around the outside of Charles Leclerc. In the end, we run out of room, jump all over the curb, and we've had to steer the car in all sort of directions to try and get that one back gathered up as we now slot into position behind Lewis Hamilton, who was battling it out with our teammate Lando Norris for fourth position there. Out in front, though, it's the two Apex GP cars that have steamed ahead of Max Verstappen in tow, and then it's Norris, Hamilton, myself in 6th, so already up 2 positions from where I started, and then is Leclerc tucked in right behind us, Gasly, Alonso, and George Russell in between, in a bit of a sandwich there, stuck behind the Alpine there of Pierre Gasly and Fernando Alonso right up behind in the Aston. So plenty of different manufacturers inside the top 10 as we now head down the back straight, and it is a defensive mode for ourselves. I was looking to try and maybe make a move on Lewis Hamilton, but Charles Leclerc kind of pounced on me when I wasn't expecting it and tries to take away my 6th position, where we kind of wake up to it and end up defending that position, but that kind of takes away that opportunity to try and catch Hamilton while he was doing a little bit of harvesting. And that's a missed opportunity, but we've got time. We've got time. It's a 10-lap sprint, so plenty of time to try and do a bit of a cheeky dive bomb here and there. But it's now time for Lando Norris, our teammate, to head down the inside of Oscar Piastri, the championship leader, and he gets it done to put himself up onto a provisional sprint podium for the end of this one. And back to Oscar Piastri now, because it is not taken very long for him to try and get that position back, that P3 back, because with the way the DRS zones are worked out, you got a big, long, massive back straight full of DRS to try and get the move done. Then all you've got to do is just try and stay within a second through, I guess, the kind of like the stadium section, the roller coaster section of the circuit, the final sector, and then you can try and pounce immediately back down the main straight. And this is just going tit for tat at the moment, with Lando Norris now going back into third position ahead of Oscar Piastri. And so one driver who's not really in a championship fight at the moment, definitely battling it out as if he is in that championship fight. And that's only just made me remember that this time last season, it was 100% a championship fight, because if you recall, we were still trying to make the battle to claim our world championship, and in the end there, we had an almighty save. We touched the curb going into the penultimate corner there, and that unsettled the car. We had to do, I don't even know how I saved that, but we managed to get it gathered up. Unfortunately, though, it's left us vulnerable to Charles Leclerc, who's going to go down the inside at turn 1. And if that doesn't show how much I am pushing at the moment to try and get as close to as I can to the top 5, I don't know what will, but at the moment, the pace on these mediums just isn't really there. I'm struggling, and recall back to qualifying. Like, I couldn't even do back-to-back laps. If I try and went for a second push lap, there just really wasn't too much of a gain. That was mainly in the first sprint qualifying session. In the second time around, the first lap was just that bad. There was 100% a bit of a gain there, as we now get the warning from Mark to let us know that the rain is expected. It's 10 to 15 minutes out, and now that I'm looking up to the sky a little bit more, it is getting more overcast as Hamilton spins it. He's collected by his teammate. We've only just avoided the incident, but we now move up to the 6th position. Leclerc moves up to 5th, and that's going to bring out the red flag. The red flag is out here in sprint race time for Austin. Wow. Now, this is going to be an almighty finish because if I think correctly, there's only going to be like 2 laps left, so it's going to be like a 2 or 3 lap dash, most likely on a soft compound tyre, unless this rain arrives. And yeah, just getting on the throttle a little bit too early there for Lewis, and he's actually collected by quite a few cars, and Colapinto kind of gets himself stuck as well on the nose of Hamilton. And yeah, exactly as I thought, going onto the soft tyre for the rest of the race, which makes me think the incident was cleaned up just in time before the rain was due to arrive, because it is yet to rain. A little bit of blue sky up above looking through the halo, but it is definitely overcast, a few grey clouds as we continue here with a race restart here in the sprint race. We look down the inside to try and make it 3 wide. Are we able to steal away a 5th position here? We get underbody damage for good measure with a little bit of contact with Charles Leclerc there, the Ferrari, side by side as we head through the S section. Still side by side, he's not backing it out. He eventually tucks in behind, and we now take that 5th position that we've been also wanting to get in today's sprint race to try and get ourselves back to where I feel like we should be. And I think it is where we should be, because there's Lando Norris. Lando has definitely been the benchmark. I was kind of hoping, as the reigning world champion, I could kind of just step into the team and kind of show him who's boss and try and take this team to a good championship. It has definitely not turned out the way I expected. But one thing that was to be expected is the weather, and here is the weather. There's rain droplets now going down my visor, and that has invited Charles Leclerc. I didn't get the exit I really wanted coming out of the hairpin there. Is that due to maybe the track getting a little bit greasy now that the first little bit of moisture has hit the tarmac? But we lose the position to Charles Leclerc, who definitely looks a bit better, and it's just been a characteristic of all the games recently that the AI in changing conditions are just so good. And I think that's just where I'm going to be at the moment, just struggling a little bit, trying to make sure I keep it on the track for this bit here. And you can just see how little grip there already is, even though we're on brand new soft compound tyres. It is just an absolute struggle bus already, running wide, so wide through there. There was just no front end grip, and there's actually cars in the pit lane. Who's that? That's going to be Max Verstappen, and one of the Apex GP cars has pulled in, and it's Oscar Piastri, the championship leader, has come into the pit lane. I'm guessing to put on the intermediate tyres, thinking that the change of conditions is going to be that dramatic that they can work their way back through the field. So Sonny Hayes, at his home Grand Prix, will take the lead from his teammate to get himself now up into 1st position, and our teammate will now find himself in 2nd. Leclerc will take 3rd. So that position loss to Charles Leclerc ended up proving very costly, because we could have ended up on the sprint podium. But we now find ourselves defending from Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, who's up in 5th. So what a drive the Frenchman has had. And you can just see now how little grip I have got. It is definitely some sort of wet weather tyre at the moment. It definitely got to be the Inters. But you can see on the minimap there as well, at the back of this train is Verstappen and Piastri, and they're just unable to make their way through the field, just because I'm guessing there's not enough grip, despite the weather change in tyres. Wasn't enough grip for them to try and carve their way through the field, as we now go super wide, and that's going to invite Gasly to head on through. Hayes will win the sprint race, but we're now struggling to get it stopped and get it turned at the same time. We're now on the AstroTurf, which is going to just put us into misery as we try and get the power down, and we lose a few positions there right at the end. Very much less than ideal. So your sprint podium in the end, it was Sonny Hayes with Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc joining him up there. And then the rest of the top 8 was Pierre Gasly, George Russell getting by right at the end, myself in 6th position, Kimi Antonelli and Carlos Sainz rounding out the top 8 to score points in this one. And Verstappen and Piastri, who very questionably decided to box from the front of the pack for the wet weather tyres for the final lap of the race, ended up in 13th and 14th, so it definitely backfired for them. Hamilton 17th, who caused the red flag, and Isaac Hadjar was the only non-finisher.
It's a United States love affair with Formula One at the moment, so what a thrill for everyone today to see our drivers lapping COTA at full hot lap speed. It's the Circuit of the Americas, and it's qualifying.
I guess a good thing about the sprint race weekends is I do get a second shot at qualifying, so it's a little bit of redemption here. Feel like I should have been much further up than 8th position in that first part of qualifying for the sprint race. So let's see if we can't do it. This time, no mediums will be in use as well. It's going to be soft compound tyres all the way through. First lap puts us up into 3rd position, but there's definitely more time on the table, and it's not that much actually. It's less than a 10th, and we'll stay 6th position where we drop down to, and Piastri will end up fastest in qualifying 1 by 6/10 to his teammate Sonny Hayes. Norris is in 3rd, 6 thousandths further behind. Myself in 8th, 1.1 seconds off the pace, and knocked out in qualifying 1 is Fernando Alonso by 10th. Lewis Hamilton, who was showing great pace all weekend, is out. Lance Stroll, Jack Doohan, and then both the Audi Sports of Nico Hulkenberg ahead of his teammate Gabriel Bortoleto. Not making it to this part of qualifying where we end our first flying lap on a brand new set of tyres as well, and the first lap will put us into 5th position. We now drop to 6th position as we go for another lap, and messing up once again turn 1. That definitely seems to be the struggle town at the moment, because there's so much time you can find by braking late, and especially with it being uphill you can brake so late, but obviously still haven't found the perfect braking zone as of yet for a qualifying hot lap. We move ourselves up into 5th position at the checkered flag, and it's going to be Piastri once again fastest by an entire second to his teammate Sonny Hayes. At this stage, qualifying, Piastri is on another planet. Russell's in 3rd, myself 5th, 1.5 seconds off the pace. Norris is 7th, a further 2/10 behind, and knocked out in qualifying 2 is Alex Albon by 10th. Pierre Gasly, Kimi Antonelli, both the Racing Bull Fords of Liam Lawson ahead of Isaac Hadjar, and Paul Aaron will line up in 16th position for Sunday's Grand Prix. And once again, mistake at turn 1. So still haven't found out that braking zone for it, and I really wish I had at the moment. But also, we only have the 1 lap here in qualifying because we've only got 1 set of tyres for qualifying 3. Purple middle sector, so the pace was absolutely there. And did that turn 1 really ruin any shot at pole? Maybe it did, because I was only 2/10 away, and it is Piastri on pole position by a tiny 300ths ahead of Max Verstappen. It's a McLaren second row lockout with myself and Norris only separated by 200ths of a second.
Well, you don't need me to remind you that Formula One is now so beloved in the United States that we race here 3 times a year. But let's give respect to COTA, or the Circuit of the Americas, to give it its full name. This place laid the foundations for this moment and still remains the host of the US Grand Prix. It's the Circuit of the Americas then, situated 14 miles outside of the great city of Austin. This is a 3.6-mile lap with 20 corners, 10 to the left and 10 to the right, and top speeds of around 200 miles per hour. Overtaking opportunities are available into turns 1 and 12, especially with that rear wing DRS wide open. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Oscar Piastri lines up on pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Norris, Pearce, Charles Leclerc and Hayes, Russell, Sainz, Colapinto and Ollie Behrman, Albon, Gasly, Andrea Kimi Antonelli and Lawson, Aaron, Fernando Alonso, and Sir Lewis Hamilton and Lance Stroll, Hulkenberg, Bortoleto, Doohan and Isaac Hadjar rounds off the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. And joining me in the commentary box today with the best view on what is about to unfold and some strong views on the action we're about to see, Naomi Schiff. I know what we've got to do before the start of today's race, but what about our driver? What do the final hours look like for them?
Well, every driver certainly has their own way of preparing themselves before a race. But I can tell you that pre-race rituals are a real thing. When I was in go-karting, I used to touch every wheel in a specific sequence before I got into the kart. And then I stepped up to cars and had a specific set of fireproof base layers just for race day. So watch the drivers when they're on the grid. Some may be sitting on the floor and isolating, others may be up to other things that they do. But these little things really help their minds get ready for the race.
Okay, radio check, radio check. Right, I know you're hot in the cockpit, but your tyres are going to be even hotter. You're going to have to work extra hard today to keep them cool.
Mark just reminded me there about the hot Texas sun is out today. The tyres will need to be treated well to make sure that we can make this strategy work, which is going to be the one stop. It's going to be tough, but it's predicted to be 16 seconds faster than the two stops, so I'll be pretty silly to not go for the one stop as we get ready. It's the third race start of the weekend, but this time it's for the Grand Prix, and we're away, and it's a fairly mediocre start for myself. A little bit of wheel spin in the second part of the race start there, and this time we don't opt to go around the outside, despite how bad that ended up for us, having the train catch the car. But look at this, Sonny Hayes, he started down in 6th position. What's he doing? Already up into 2nd position. He has had an absolute electric start there to get himself up into 2nd. It's already an Apex GP 1-2. Our teammate has run wide, so we're going to swoop down the inside, finish it around the outside. And as we come to the end of the first sector of the Grand Prix, it's an Apex GP 1-2, McLaren 3-4. Then it's Max Verstappen, who was on the front row, drops down to 5th position. So he's had an absolute shocker. Then Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Carlos Sainz, Oliver Behrman in 9th position. Franco Colapinto will round out the points so far on this opening lap. And you can see Lando here. He has fallen already 7/10 behind myself, and that has now left him vulnerable to Max Verstappen and the Red Bull Ford. Is he going to be able to complete this move down the inside? Charles Leclerc nearly makes it 3 wide. I really thought he was going to make it 3 wide there. Try and do what I did on the first lap of the sprint race. Use the exit curb, or the entry curb, on the outside to find that little bit of extra space required to make the position work. And they're still battling it out side by side, which has now allowed me, along with the rest of the top 3, to pull over a second ahead of the rest of the field. And this is how Sonny Hayes has done it here. So it's a pretty alright start, a little bit better than the Ferrari alongside him. I've moved towards the more traditional racing line to try and get a good cutback, and he's just sent it down on the brakes, made it 3 wide momentarily at the apex of turn 1. He's now side by side with our teammate. That's Lando next to him on his driver's right, and he ends up just sweeping ahead, taking the position. And here I come with my name tag up above, and we swoop through as well. And that was very opportunistic from ourselves, extremely opportunistic from Sonny Hayes. Now get himself up into 2nd, and he's looking very good for an Apex GP 1-2, as our teammate is struggling. He's really struggling, and this isn't giving me too much hope, because Lando has definitely been the benchmark of the season, and if he's struggling, I can't imagine what I'm probably going to be facing. So I'm hoping I'm not in a little bit of a honeymoon period at the moment with a little bit of clean air in front of me. I've got 1.5 seconds to the next car. I'm just getting that slipstream down the straights to keep me in tow, but it's pretty much disappearing by the time we get to the actual fast corners, which gives me a little bit of clean air, and then there's a 3-second gap behind. So I'm in a little bit of a no man's land, but I'm still getting some sort of slight benefit from it, this slipstream in front of me. So I'm in a bit of a comfortable position. I've got, 3 seconds to Verstappen behind me, and it's all battling out, with Norris losing yet another position, and this time it's to George Russell. So the Mercedes now finds himself ahead of the McLaren, but out in front as we jump now to the start of lap 5. Sonny Hayes has clawed back that gap that was over 1.5 seconds, and he now goes down the inside to try and take the lead away from his teammate, the championship leader. Is he going to be able to spoil the party for Oscar Piastri? And he does. He takes the lead away here in the US Grand Prix, and that is a Hayes leading ahead of Piastri. I still sit in 3rd, but we've now got our first objective to achieve a quick lap time. It's a 1:40.3, but you can see there, my best so far the Grand Prix is a 34.6. So with my delta at the moment only being just over a second away from that fastest time, it's a 35.9, well and truly fast enough for Mark at this point of the race. And you can see I've also dropped a fair bit back now behind the 2 Apex cars. It's now nearly 3 seconds, but I've still got pretty much 3 seconds to the car behind, so holding my ground quite well. So I don't think the pace is really on here to try and go for a win, but a podium is 100% on here, and this will be my first podium in some time. And I'm just eager to try and get a podium now, with Colapinto now getting himself through into 9th position. But Behrman is not going to let this one go any easier in that Haas Toyota. Can he hang out around the outside to hold that position? No, he can't. Colapinto holds onto position, and that is 9th for the Red Bull Ford. And as I mentioned in the sprint race, with the way the DRS zones are laid out here at COTA, it is pretty easy if you get overtaken down the back straight just to slot back through into turn 1 using that DRS down the main straight if you can hang within a second. And then on the flip side, if you can hang through that first sector with all the fast S's, with Colapinto, who has been able to do that, you can try and get that move back done down the back straight. So it's a little bit of a back and forth, bit of a cat and mouse game that you're able to play with your competitors around this circuit. But hopefully Colapinto's got this move done and dusted for himself. But now taking a look at Behrman here, I don't think that move is done and dusted, because he's done exactly what he did last time around, and that is a move down the inside at turn 1. But taking a look at myself now, it is over 4 seconds, so you can see there on the timings, over 4 seconds to Oscar Piastri, and it is 2 seconds now to Max Verstappen behind me, as Russell's now slow. Has George Russell got an issue? I think he has, because he's now lost 2 positions extremely quickly to Norris and Carlos Sainz, and he pulls it off of the road, and that is George Russell out of the Grand Prix. The first driver has fallen under the hot Texas sun, and his Mercedes has given up, as now we're actually pitting. So I've asked to come into the pits a little bit early, because look at my tyre wear icon. It is absolutely on the edge of puncture territory, and I do not want to risk it, especially with all the high-speed corners. I'm just going to be losing way too much time. So I've boxed a lap early. You can actually see it there when we cross the line in the pit lane. The notification to come up to tell me to box. So really, we've still boxed on lap 11. I've just done it at the start of lap 11 versus the end of lap 11. But we are now onto the hard compound tyres. Are we going to come out in a little bit of clean air? I don't think so. Can we get ahead of the Aston Martin, though? That's going to be critical, because then there will be one less car that we have to overtake while trying to make our way back through the field on this fresher rubber. And we do stay ahead of Paul Aaron there in the Aston Martin Honda. But now we're all over the back of Nico Hulkenberg only after the one sector. We dive it down the inside at the hairpin. And that is now us up into 15th position, but we get it all wrong on the exit, and we could find ourselves now vulnerable, because look at all the time we lost to Kimi Antonelli. 0.6 of a second, I probably reckon I lost going through that corner, but in the end, we do just hold on to that position ahead of Hulkenberg, and I'm very glad he didn't battle too hard for that one, because otherwise that would have been disastrous for our race. And once again, with Kimi Antonelli getting a move done, I think that was probably a little bit questionable, because I locked the rears heading down into turn 1, and Antonelli's probably absolutely filthy with me, especially after the antics of Azerbaijan, and now I have absolutely sent it on him going down into turn 1. Had it all crossed up as well. He 100% would have had to take avoiding action to avoid another race-ending collision. But we also get our next objective to stay ahead of Kimi Antonelli, so Mark knows that we can't be losing any positions while we're trying to make our way through. And with the DRS is so powerful around here in Kota, but we actually managed to get ourselves ahead of Liam Lawson, which is a bonus, because that puts an extra car between us and Kimi Antonelli. Is now Oscar Piastri from 2nd position on the road. He will be trying to get the undercut going on his teammate, and from 3 seconds behind, and he'll be boxing first of the 2 Apex GP cars. I'm going to imagine it's going to be onto the hard compound tyres. I don't think going this long in the first stint will put them onto a 2-stopper. So it is the hard compound tyres, and behind as well, you can see it is Max Verstappen who's also coming into the lane for Red Bull Ford, and the Ferrari as well of Charles Leclerc, I think that is, also in the lane and also on the hard compound tyres. So it looks like pretty much everyone up and down the pit lane is on the same strategy. It's a one-stop going from the medium to the hard compound tyres, and you can see that we have also jumped Verstappen quite good, as we managed to extend our gap that we had over him before the pit stops phase by about a second as well. So it's back to about 3 seconds it is to Max Verstappen. It was just over 2 when we boxed, I think it was. But we need to focus now on Sonny Hayes. So he was your race leader, and his teammate has been trying to get the undercut on him. The gap was just over 2 seconds between the 2 Apex GP cars. They need to do a good pit stop here for the hard compound tyres for him to stay ahead, and it looks pretty good. No, it's not. The front left is slow for Hayes, and is that going to allow Piastri to come on through? Because Norris ain't going to go through, because he's coming into the lane. So Piastri, is he going to be able to get him? Here he comes down into turn 1. Hayes goes through the first corner, and Piastri is unable to do it. But that there is your gap for the lead. Piastri on the hotter tyres as well, so he should be able to try and attack and close that gap, and that gap is now down to a second, so we could have a battle for the lead on our hands at the moment. I round out the podium in 3rd at the moment. Max Verstappen 4th position, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris Carlos Sainz, Oliver Behrman, Lewis Hamilton coming out the pits, and he'll just lose out to Behrman in the end, and you'll have to sit in 9th position. Franco Colapinto rounds out the points, but he's got the 2 Alpines of Stroll and Pierre Gasly tucked up right behind him, and then it's Alex Albon with Alonso for company, then Kimi Antonelli with a train of Liam Lawson and Nico Hulkenberg in the Audi Sport. Paul Aaron is in 18th position, with Jack Doohan in the second Haas Toyota, Gabriel Bortoleto and Isaac Hadjar rounds out the field at the moment in 21st position, with George Russell the only non-finisher so far of this Grand Prix, as we now round the final corner to start lap 17, and that also signifies the end of our objective to stay ahead of Kimi Antonelli, which we do succeed quite well because he's all the way down outside of the points, and we're up in 3rd position at the moment as the pit cycle has worked its way out. And here is Lewis Hamilton. He was knocked out of qualifying 2, remember. Sorry, he was actually knocked out of qualifying 1. That is how bad of a qualifying it was for Hamilton. He's worked his way up nicely to get himself now up into 8th position. He'll probably be pissing himself that he had to make that move on Oliver Behrman. He should have had that position through the pit stop cycle, but was unable to do so. And Behrman, who I would have thought would be trying to attack the Ferrari of Lewis Hamilton, show his worth to try and see if he can't get that Ferrari seat possibly for next season. And it is in the end going to be Franco Colapinto trying to get the move done on the Haas Toyota in the cherry blossom livery, and he does make the move now up into 9th position. The Red Bull Fords now sit 4th and 9th on the road as we get our next objective of the Grand Prix. We need to achieve an average lap time. So the pace from Max Verstappen was better than us in the first stint, and we've now got 10 laps pretty much to hold onto a 3-second lead that we have over him. And based off the first stint, that 3 seconds gap could come down fairly quickly. So having that average lap time available for us to try and chase down, it does mean that we can try and keep a consistent pace. We've got a target for us to try and hit to make sure that we can keep that gap out for as long as possible to try and hold on to this 3rd position, as Alex Albon gets himself past the Red Bull Ford to get himself now inside the points. It is currently sitting as a double points finish for Williams Racing, which I don't think has happened for quite a while in this series, as Hamilton is continuing his charge through the field. He now gets himself up into 7th position, but I'm not sure if he can get himself any higher because it is 12 seconds to the top 6 if he wants to break into that. And I have just been praising Franco Colapinto making the moves to get himself inside the points, and in the end he nearly gets rear-ended by the Audi Sport there of Nico Hulkenberg, and the Ford power unit has gone up in an absolute bomb. That is a big plume of smoke coming out the back of his Red Bull Ford, and he'll have to park it up, and he becomes the 2nd retirement of today's Grand Prix. And while he was pulling off to the side of the track, we have crossed the line to start lap 24 to get ourselves now past that average lap time objective. And you can see that the gap is now only half a second to Max Verstappen, and starting lap 25, I think he is within striking distance. And with the DRS, we kind of hover halfway out, halfway in of the racing line. We try and defend, but he keeps it in. He keeps the nose in. He's hung it around the outside at turn 1. He's using that 1 lap extra tyre life to his advantage. We make contact. We throw up the hand in anger, but we hold on to the position. But it's only just we hold on to the position, but all eyes now turn to Sonny Hayes. He's only ever had 1 race win prior to this, and that was in Brazil last season. But he now becomes a 2-time race winner, and he does it at his home Grand Prix. Sonny Hayes wins the US Grand Prix, and Oscar Piastri will cross the line to make it an Apex GP 1-2. For us, though, we've had to hold off Max Verstappen. He only ever had the real 1 look to try and get the position. We've been able to get the traction down at the crucial corners, and we come home for our first podium in such a long time. This is going to be such a big confidence boost for ourselves, and Mark is over the moon with that as well. Lewis Hamilton, driver of the day.
And it's the checkered flag and the win today for Sonny Hayes.
And you can just see how much this means to the fans as well. The energy that they were giving the driver all day today. A race win at home feels like 10 race wins elsewhere.
From lights out to the checkered flag, each and every driver has this moment in the back of their mind. Now it's time for their celebrations. Our podium, it awaits.
So it was an Apex GP 1-2 led by that guy there. It's Sonny Hayes claiming victory at home ahead of Oscar Piastri, and myself claiming my first podium, and it has actually been since Saudi Arabia of this season. So since round 2 of the season, I have not had a podium. So it feels so good to finally get one as we take a look at the rest of the top 10. It's Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, Oliver Behrman, and Alex Albon does make it a double points finish for Williams. Franco Colapinto and George Russell, the only non-finishers of today's Grand Prix. And with that result, Oscar Piastri extends his Drivers' Championship lead to 25 points ahead of Lando Norris, and then it's Sonny Hayes in 3rd position, only a few points further behind. Myself in 16 points behind Charles Leclerc. Apex GP extend their lead in the Constructors to 70 points ahead of McLaren. Ferrari sit 3rd, a further 60 points adrift. For our driver ratings, it's our experience that's lost some points, but the Racecraft and Awareness gains with the pace to level 94 and focus to level 88 for an overall driver rating of 94. And the driver recognition has also remained at 51%. And for this one, it is all done. If you did enjoy it, please make sure to like and subscribe. For the next one, though, it's another sprint weekend, but this time we head from North America to South America, where we take on Brazil for the penultimate round of the championship.